Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. There is a very good matchup on at the weekend between two English guys, Zelfa Barrett, 30 wins, 2 defeats, and Jordan Gill, 28 wins, 2 defeats, and 1 draw, I think. And this has kind of got crossroads written all over it, in a sense, because I think Barrett is now 30. I think Gill is roughly the same age. I don't know. Can't remember about Gill's age, but there isn't a great deal of difference. Both orthodox fighters. Both, if you go back to the back end of 2022, both suffered bad defeats. Gill got smashed to bits by Kiko Martinez, lost his EBU title. Barrett lost to Rakimov, Shavatskan Rakimov. I probably mispronounced his name, but you know the guy I mean. Although it did take him, he did actually look all right in the early part of that fight, but he ended up getting stopped late. And then both guys came back, and I think Barrett's had a couple of decent wins against sort of B minus, C plus level fighters. But the most impressive of all the comeback wins was by Gill, because he knocked out Michael Conlan in the middle rounds of their contest and looked very, very good doing it. One might use the phrase reborn doing it, because sometimes a fighter who you think they're on the back end of their career, you think they've kind of lost their way totally. You don't think they're going to be able to do anything really great, and then suddenly they produce something. Kind of like Holyfield. No, I'm not comparing Jordan Gill to Van Holyfield, but kind of like when Holyfield lost to Bobby Ches and then ended up knocking out Mike Tyson. I mean, no one saw that coming. I certainly didn't, because Holyfield looked completely washed up against Ches. And Gill had that sort of resurrection look about him, because he said after the fight that he, really lost his way in life, never mind boxing, and that he was toying with the idea of suicide, and there were some terrible thoughts going through his head. But he sort of managed to pull it together, and lo and behold, he's back in the mix. And Conlan, you can argue, had shown vulnerabilities around the chin in the past. He'd taken a beating from Lopez, and obviously we know about the Lee Wood fight. But sometimes it's how you get your work done. I always say that, and Jordan Gill looked the part. Now, how's this one going to go? Because I think this is definitely a case of Eddie Hearn's, the winner stays on sort of thing, because even though both guys have come back since their bad defeats at the end of 2022, if memory serves, I want to say Gill lost to Martinez in, what was it, October time roughly, and maybe November was the defeat for Barrett, but, roughly that time. So that's what, getting on for a year and a half. For both guys, it does have the air of one of those the loser, where does a loser go fight. I mean, maybe that's too harsh, I don't know, but definitely when you consider the amount of fighters that Matchroom and Hearn have got on their roster now, if you want to stay on, if you want to stay relevant, you've really got to be winning these fights. And I think the loser is going to struggle to come back, especially the age they are, which is, I know one's 30, one's near as damn it 30. They're going to find it difficult to come back. They're going to find it difficult to find opportunities where they can jump back into world level, or at least even European level. So who would you make the favourite? Well, certainly before their last respective fights, I would say that Zelfa Barrett was a red-hot favourite against Gill, because Gill looked depleted and defeated. But let's be honest here. After that Conlan performance, perhaps you might make Gill the favourite. I don't know. The way that I can see the fight going is Gill is, well, both are kind of, I suppose Gill is a boxer puncher. He does like to put pressure on, but he does it in quite an educated manner. They've both got very good skills. I'd say Barrett's probably slicker, uses his feet a bit more of a mover. I can see Barrett probably circling, or maybe using the ring a bit more in the early rounds. I don't see him early on standing and trading with Gill. He probably want to have a look and see if that Conlan performance was an aberration, or whether he really is back with a bang, old Gill. Gill, I can see trying to put the educated pressure on, not neglecting the jab, not just walking in the front door, but trying to fire some power punches quite early. You know, you always wonder about the first round of any fight. It's always a bit sort of, we'll have a look at each other. But I've got an idea. Gill and his team will be aware that Barrett likes to find a rhythm and stick to it, and it's a kind of a mover's rhythm. So I think Gill will want to be going on the hunt quite early. I see Barrett winning some of the early rounds, maybe pinching them with his movement, with his counter punching. But I can see Gill having some success with putting the pressure on. And again, we're talking that water on rock effect. Is this a 10 or a 12 round fight? I think it's a 12 round fight. But I don't remember reading that there were any of those, even those sort of silly alphabet soup belts, the lower ones. I don't remember. I think it's a 12 round fight. I could be wrong about that. Certainly, if it is a 12 round fight, I think Gill if he starts early and he starts putting the mental pressure on as well as the physical pressure, it can definitely pay dividends, certainly in the last third of the fight, rounds 9, 10, 11, 12. I think in the middle rounds, you probably see Gill taking over a little bit, or certainly becoming a bit more successful. And I don't see Gill losing. I don't see Gill as the type of person who's going to lose heart, or is going to get knocked out of his game plan. Or I can see him losing some of the early rounds. Maybe after 6, he'll be behind, but I don't think that will bug him that much. And don't forget the early rounds where Barrett looked very, very good against Rakhimov. I think we might see an element of that as well. Now, that's not to say Barrett can't fight. He can, but he much prefers to be the counterpuncher, to be on the back foot, to sort of mix in. He's the type of guy who does these little, raids, these little sort of bombing raids where he'll exchange and then he'll get out. Whereas Gill is more the type of guy who is more reluctant to take a back foot, likes to put a bit more meat on the punches. So who's going to win? It's a difficult one, isn't it? As with most interesting, intriguing fights, it's difficult to predict. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I can easily see a scenario where Barrett outpoints Gill, but I'll take a little minor gamble in my head anyway and say I think Barrett will do enough in the last third of Gill will do enough in the last third of the fight to either stop Barrett late, but I think the more likely scenario is he wins a very close decision, maybe even controversial, maybe a majority or a split or something like that against Zelfa Barrett. I'm going to go for Jordan Gill to win the fight. But as with all intriguing fights where you can see all sorts of different scenarios, because I can certainly see Barrett outpointing him. Wouldn't surprise me at all. I think probably the heavier individual punches are from Gill. If he can land them late, he might stop him. But I'm going to go for a points win for Jordan Gill. Possibly controversially, but certainly quite close. 115, 113, 116, 112 at the most. 8-4 at the very most. But let me know what you think. Who are you picking? You're looking forward to the fight. Where do you think these guys are in their respective careers? Who do you think's got the most left? Do you think the Conlan win slightly flattered Gill, or do you think Gill? No, he is reborn. He's rediscovered himself. Do you think Barrett's underrated? You might think that. Barrett's been quiet since that defeat. But back in Rakhimov, he's been quite quiet. Only had a couple of fights, but yeah. Let me know what you think. By the way, I should point out that victory over Conlan is the only fight Gill has had since the defeat to Kiko Martinez, which was a very, very bad defeat. So I wonder if that would come into it. The element of rustiness, lack of activity. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments below. If you could subscribe to this channel. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. That helps us a lot. And also that like button as well, because they count them apparently. I'm looking forward to reading what you got to say. Should be a good one. And I'll catch you later. Bye for now.